I married Juanita on the 1st of December 1941, at which time I was a waiter on the Union Pacific Railroad. And we were married for some time before I was attempted to be drafted into the war, but I was not drafted because I had already volunteered but had not been called to active duty. In other words, I was notified to report to the draft on or about May of 1942. And I informed the people that I had already volunteered service and just had not been called. And later I was called into to active duty, which was really a training period as a cadet to become a pilot in the Air Force. And at that particular time in history, it was not called the Air Force, it was called the U.S. Army Air Corps. In any event, I began the pilot training course as a cadet, where I went to get that training, that cadet pilot training, in Tuskegee, Alabama. And I started that training in 1942, and after completing that, I was commissioned an officer as a pilot in the Air Force, the U.S. Army Air Corps. And shortly thereafter, that's in Tuskegee, Alabama, I was ordered to be transferred to Oscoda, Michigan, where I continued and participated in combat fighter training. And after serving some time in the Oscoda, Michigan area in fighter training, pilot training, I was sent to combat duty in about sometime in 1943. It was late 1943, according to my recollection at this point in time. And for my first assignment in combat duty, we arrived in North Africa, in Oran, North Africa, where we stayed for 2 or 3 weeks en route to our combat base in Cercola, Italy. That's Cercola, and pronounced like it has an H in it. It's Cercola, Italy, where I was taking the place of some other pilots. There were 10 of us as replacement pilots for those who had served their tour of duty and we went back to the United States. And so I began my combat training as a pilot in Cercola, Italy, and participated in escort missions, escorting the B-17s or the B-24s, the case might be, and also participating in combat operations involving non-escort work, but dive bombing on military targets, either in southern France or northern Italy. And that continued for some time in those dive bombing operations in northern Italy and southern France included strafing operations, low-altitude strafing operations in conjunction with the dive bombing. And upon the completion of my 28th mission, perhaps I should not say completion, because I was shot down on the 28th mission. I was shot down by the German anti-aircraft fire in southern France. And at that point, having been shot down, I crashed in the plane in the Alps mountain in southern France. And shortly after crashing in the plane, there were about 6 German military personnel who approached my plane and on the ground in the Alps mountain. They approached me. It appeared to me to be either anti-aircraft or some kind of aircraft personnel by the nature of their military uniform. In any event, they told me when they got close enough to speak to me. I saw them 200 or 300 feet away, and later they were closer. And they told me that one of them spoke English. He said, for me, the war was over. And so, from that point on, I was taken to a German intelligence center. But before I got to the German intelligence center, I was forced to retreat with the German army who was retreating before the advancing American armies. And so that period of time was about 4 or 5 days before I reached a point where I was turned over to the German intelligence officers. And after spending some time with the German intelligence officers, during which the interrogation period lasted about 2 or 3 hours, I was sent to a military installation, a prison camp. This was not a permanent prison camp. This was an interim prison camp. And from there, I was transferred to a regular prison camp where there were 2,500 American pilots. I was the only black pilot at that installation, and that was in Saigon, Germany. I think that's spelled Saigon, Saigon, Germany. I was there as a prisoner of war until January the 28th, 1945. In other words, I was a prisoner of war altogether from May the 16th, 1944 to June the 9th, 1945. I was in Saigon, Germany from May 1944 to January 1945, at which point I was obliged to retreat with the German army before the advancing Russian armies. The Russian armies were very close to capturing the prisoners of war that the Germans had, and Hitler wanted to keep as many prisoners of war as possible to use as a bargaining point in trying to negotiate some sort of a peace settlement with the American President, Mr. Roosevelt. In any event, we were obliged to retreat. We were given about 1 hour's notice to prepare to retreat to march, and we left with nothing more than the clothing on our backs, and we marched 4 days and nights before we stopped the first time. And during the course of that 4-day march, we were given one slice of bread. This was a thick slice of bread, about 1 inch thick or so, each evening about 7 o'clock. And then, other than that, we continued to march. We stopped every hour for 10 minutes, and then, after 4 days, we stopped for a period of about 4 hours at a huge German farm. And from that point on, we marched again, night and day. Ultimately, we arrived at our destination in Moosburg, Germany. And during the course of that march, there were, I don't know how many thousands of prisoners of war, but behind each group of about 2,500 prisoners, there was a team of horses pulling a wagon to carry the prisoners of war who had passed out from exhaustion during the course of the march. And the Germans never did tell us in the interim what our destination was. We were simply marching to retreat, so to speak, before the advancing Russians. And we marched night and day, as I said, for the 4 days, and then we continued to march after that. And all the while, we got this one slice of bread each day. And then we finally reached our destination in Moosburg, Germany. And I would say this, that there were any number of those who died from exhaustion on that march, and there was no provision to pick them up other than this team of horses pulling a wagon. If you were able to get on it, if you were fortunate enough to have some of the American prisoners of war who were more able to help you to get on, that might be that. But in any event, on one of those occasions when there was a 10-minute stop, I failed to respond to the order to resume the march. This is a 10-minute break. One of those 10-minute breaks, hour after hour, 10-minute break, and night and day. This is a 24-hour day we marched. And then I collapsed from exhaustion on the 10-minute break and was unable to respond. And it just so happened to me that I was fortunate that there were some roommates. There were about 18 of us in one large room in a barrack, and there was about 10 or 12 rooms, about 18 guys, 16 or 18 guys in each room. And so in this particular room where I was, there were about 2 or 3 those who were of the Mormon faith. And it's my understanding, I don't know really absolutely, but it's my understanding that the Mormon, those who subscribe to the Mormon faith, they did not smoke or drink or indulge in any one of a number of negative aspects of life, such as that, and that may have accounted for the fact that they were in better physical condition than I was, or some of the other fellows were either, for that matter. In any event, after I had collapsed, I was picked up by a couple of Mormons from Salt Lake City, I learned, who one of the fellows had me on one side, the other on the other side, and so to speak, my arms were around them. They put my arm around them, and they were supporting me as I, in an unconscious or semi-conscious state, as the case may be, as we walked on. And eventually, they were carrying me, and it got to a point where I was able to move my own feet, my own legs, and they were able to get me to walk on my own. And that happened to be the last stretch of the march, and we reached Moosburg, Germany. That's simply look.